Welcome to the Productpreneur Podcast. I'm your host, Nicole Cumberbatch, product development and marketing coach and mom of three. Learn from and get inspired by women entrepreneurs killing it in the product space. Each episode, we will share the latest trends, proven strategies, and inside secrets of the product world, all designed to give you greater confidence to create your own success through a product venture. Let's do this. Welcome to the Productpreneur Podcast. Today we're going to switch things up a little. But before we move on with the show, I'll share a listener review. This one is from Shannon Lohr, who was a guest on my podcast a few episodes ago. Episode 30, Launching a Sustainable Fashion Brand. Be sure to listen to this one. Great interviewer. Love being a guest on Nicole's podcast and listening to the other episodes. Nicole is warm, easy to talk to, intuitive, and asks great questions that she knows her listeners are probably thinking. Thanks for having me on the show, Nicole. Well, thank you so much, Shannon. I loved having you on the show. Your show was amazing for my listeners who are thinking of launching a fashion brand. And reviews like this mean so much to me. I know that I talk about it every show, but it is really important for all podcasts out there that you listen to, that you rate and review the show, because it really does get the podcast into the hands of more people that need the show. So if you could just take a moment to do that, I would so appreciate it. Just go to Apple Podcasts and hit rate and review, or you can go to this handy link called ratethispodcast.com/productpreneur. And from there, it just automatically goes to whatever links are available for your device. It's super cool. Love technology. Now on with the show. I was recently interviewed by Nicole Cumberbatch on the Mamas Know Best We Got Something to Say podcast. And it was such a great conversation that I wanted to share it with you. I don't usually share podcast interviews that I've done on other podcasts, so I just thought it'd be an interesting mix, and you maybe you'll learn something more about me. And so we'll talk about product launching, and we also talk about motherhood. You can find Nicole's amazing podcast on all things motherhood on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to podcasts. So sit back, relax, and I hope you enjoy this one.
Hello, welcome to the Mamas Know Best We Got Something to Say podcast. I'm on with Nicole Cumberbatch. She is a product business coach who takes the mystery out of building a product business by helping women launch and scale their product businesses. She has over 20 years of marketing and consulting experience, having worked with large global brands such as Coca-Cola and Kraft Foods, where she built new brands and scaled mature brands. In addition, she worked internationally in Australia, where she started a product business, growing it to $2 million in sales. Wow. She is proud to have launched the Productpreneur podcast, featuring inspirational female productpreneurs and valuable marketing content to grow a product business. On a personal note, she is also mom to 3 amazing children, which is her biggest accomplishment. So, Nicole, before we get into what you do as a product business coach, which I'm extremely interested in learning more about, and kind of your history in your career and where you kind of started with, why don't we go into your motherhood journey and tell me about your 3 amazing children?
Yeah. Well, first of all, thank you so much, Nicole, for inviting me to be on your podcast. I'm super honored that you would have me and that you think enough of me to have you on the podcast. So thank you. And so my motherhood journey, it's been amazing and for sure full of ups and downs, as for many mothers, I'm sure have experienced. But my kids are a little bit older. They're 14, 11, and 10 now. So they're much more capable of doing things on their own. In fact, as we speak, they're just having their breakfast, or a really late breakfast that I cooked for them, and I just left them. And it's amazing. There's so much more freedom when they're a bit older. So any moms out there who are listening and have really young children, it gets easier. So yeah, I hate to say the word balance because I always feel like there's no perfect balance. Like, I don't think anyone has the perfect balance. But I do believe that there are sort of waves of different things, and there are times and seasons for things. So when my kids were babies, it was really difficult impossible to be full-time on my business. So I had more focus on my family at that point. And now as they're getting older, I have more of a focus as they're in school and they're more capable of doing things on their own. I am really focused on my business and I want to see that grow. So, of course, they're still important to me and I focus on them, but it's not my only focus right now. And so I just find that there are different waves. And there might be times when you're launching something and you're so into it and you just can't even think about focusing on your family, and that's okay. I'm sure you have to find other substitutes, like maybe your husband or your partner or whatever can take some of the slack, and maybe you have a nanny or some other help. But there are times and seasons for different things, and it's okay not to try everything really well.
So let me ask before we get into, how you started your business. Your oldest is 14. How long ago, what was your career like? What did you start? Kind of tell me now your professional journey.
So I was always in marketing and consulting, mostly marketing. I was climbing the corporate ladder. I worked at Coca-Cola at the time. And my husband and I moved to Australia because we just wanted to be in warmer weather. We live in Canada. And we're like, okay, let's have an adventure. So he got transferred. He was working at Nestle.
And this
I
is
was
no
working at
children,
Coke.
right? This is just you and your husband.
Yeah, there's no children, although I was like 1 week pregnant when we moved. So we had just found out we were pregnant when we were actually moving. So we moved there, and fortunately, like, he got transferred with Nestle, I got transferred with Coke. And I was working at Coke and it was amazing, but so busy. Like, as a marketing professional, it takes a lot of you. And I just don't like to do things halfway. So of course I'm 110% into it. And I knew I was pregnant. So we had our first child there, and I just couldn't see myself going back to the grind and coming home at like 6 or 6:30 even, and seeing my baby and putting him to bed. Like, I just could not imagine that being my life. And I thought, there's no way I can do that, but then how can I spend more time with him? So immediately I thought, well, having a business is the way to do that, because you have flexibility and you own your schedule, and you know when you can grow it and when you're not going to grow it. So what I did was I started an import business, and it's a little bit of a long story as to how I got into that. But we just had a friend, a contact who did the same in Canada. I said, I'll expand your business in Australia. So I didn't know what I was doing. I had never been in sales or importing or anything like that, but I knew marketing. And so I started to like work on it while I was on mat leave. And then I decided to say to my employer that I wasn't going to be coming back. So I kind of took that risk before knowing full well that this business was going to be successful. And so I eventually got into the major retailers. Like, there's 2 major supermarkets there, Kohl's and Woolworths. So I got into those, and selling to a couple of other brands, but those are huge. As long as you have those contracts, you're set. So that was amazing. I grew the business to 2 million in sales. And so it was awesome. But then we decided to leave.
Having known nothing about the industry, I think that's a good point. So marketing, but you had known nothing about the industry. You're having this newborn child, your first child, right, and you're able to do that. So don't, overlook that fact, because I think it's easy to say that was 14 years ago. So you're like, oh, it was 1, 2, 3, but it's like, no, you've had a lot going on.
Yeah, no, it's true. There were a lot of mindset things I had to get over. So luckily it worked. But then we moved back to Canada because, well, I was pregnant with my second, and we were so far from family. My mom was sick at the time. It was just really hard. So we moved back to Canada, and I realized that, okay, I couldn't keep the business in Australia. It was really difficult with the travel and everything. So I decided to help women who were kind of like in the situation I was in, also start their product businesses and grow them. And so that's when I launched my business, which is helping women with their product businesses. So either if they have an idea, or if they don't have an idea, or even if they have a product business and they want to grow it, I help them with.
What was it to you? Because I think that's an interesting. I always find it, I guess, interesting when I interview the women on my podcast, of how things are created, right? What it is that you felt there was a need for. So what was it that you felt like the product side of it, and not just growing a business in general? What was it about a product-based business?
Honestly, I was thinking, okay, I really want to help female entrepreneurs. I didn't know how or what. I just wanted to help them. And I thought, okay, how can I take my marketing experience and every kind of experience I've had, how can I take that and help women? And it was really with actually the help of a coach. I always have a coach. It was with the help of a coach who kind of pulled it out of me and said, you've always worked on product businesses. Why not help
Mhm.
product-based businesses with their launch and marketing. And it was so true. Sometimes you don't see it yourself, but someone else has to tell you, this is what I see in you. And so that is truly something that I do have as my strength and I help women with. That has been amazing. And I'm very grateful to that coach who helped me discover that.
And so basically, you've been in your business of helping women launch these product-based businesses for how long now? You said since your second child, about? So is it 12 years? You said?
Well, actually, it was a bit of a windy road until I did launch that. So I maybe skipped a bit of history
Okay,
there.
well,
So when
and
we
yes.
moved, yeah. So when we moved back, I did consult for larger businesses. I consulted for Coke. I consulted
Right.
for different companies. I even went back and thought, I'm going to climb the corporate ladder. And so I went back and then I just realized, oh my gosh, no, this is not for me. Why did I do this again? And so finally, after leaving that company, I realized, okay, this is what I want to do. I want to launch this business. So it's only been about 3 years or so that I've
Oh,
really started
wow.
to help women with their businesses.
Yeah, of you starting your own business and focusing
Mhm.
solely on that. Since we're kind of on this, what do you say? Because you do have the experience of being in corporate America, starting your own business, right? Because you did start the import business. So you have a lot
Mhm.
of that experience. What tips would you give for moms struggling? Like, let's say someone myself, I started my podcast. I just knew I needed to start it. And I think it goes to your comment earlier where you're saying sometimes just kind of begin it, be resilient with it and just kind of keep on with it.
Mhm.
And it's been a year, but I also have a day job. I'm a
Right.
wife and I always say roles, right? I think it's so important that we live like I'm a mom, I'm a daughter, I'm a sister, I'm a friend, I'm a this, I'm a that. That takes so much of ourselves. What do you say or tip to moms who are struggling trying to build the two because we're only set and we don't even really have 24 hours because you need to sleep. So you really
Mhm.
have like 16 hours in the day because you need to sleep for something. So what do you say to that?
Oh, goodness. Yeah, it's such a great question because a lot of people think, well, they need to quit their job in order to start another business, like a side hustle or whatever. And there's positives and negatives to both. You could either leave your job and start something else right away, but then you're risking that income. You don't know if it's going to work. So there's that. But the positive is that you can really focus on whatever it is you're doing because business takes focus. It really does. Or you could have a job and you're starting something on the side. And what I would say to that is, first of all, the bonus for that is that you have the money and while you're working, so you have money to invest. And starting a business is not cheap. You have to invest in certain things like a website. If it's products, it's like the product development, the inventory and branding and everything. So that comes with it. So having a job does help with, or at least having some kind of cushion helps with that investment.
But then you lose on the
And
time because then you're everywhere.
yeah, right. And but the great thing is then you won't have such a scarcity mindset when you have income also, because if you leave that job, then you do kind of have this feeling of scarcity, like you don't have
Sure.
very many resources to invest. So again, there's pluses and negatives to both, but I definitely say like if you have an income, great. You have the money to invest, you also have money to get help. So I would get help from a coach, first of all, to help you get there faster and help you avoid making expensive mistakes. Secondly, getting help through hiring people, hiring services that are not in your zone of genius. So, if you're doing things that really, maybe it's social media posting and
Right.
it's not your strength. Well, you can hire all this stuff out and there's no shame in that. It's no shame in getting help. In fact, these are people who are experts at that can help you with it. So I'm a strong advocate of hiring stuff that is not within your realm of expertise, but also like you're just not going to do as great of a job if you're doing it yourself.
And I guess that goes to, and it's kind of, you would think that it's so kind of like bingo, but to hear it, right? Like you said, you needed to hear someone tell you, but it makes so much sense. It's like, look, you could either take a leap of faith, a major leap of faith, right? Because, whatever your bills are, whatever your future, financial goals are, but now you're like, nope, I don't want this, whatever that income is, whatever your benefits are, whatever that you're gaining from that, and give it
Mm-hmm.
150%. Or if you do have income coming in that can kind of give you that cushion, then you could take advantage of that income. And instead of you doing it all yourself, or like I have a cleaning lady that comes, right? So the word of
Mm-hmm.
like I can't have time to even, clean my house. I need help.
Right.
So you
Yeah.
start, gosh, and there's a particular word I'm looking for that we use in the business world all the time. You outsource. There we go.
Yeah,
So then you
outsourcing for
outsource
sure.
what you can't do. And it's funny because, like I said, it takes for someone to say it for you to kind of get it of like, that's really all it is. So
Yeah.
what you would outsource in your own home, maybe having someone do your landscaping, your cleaning for you. It's the same thing with a business.
Yes, for sure. And it depends on the type of person you are too. Some people cannot focus on two things. And not that they can't focus, but if they find it very difficult. Like for me, I found it very difficult if I have a full-time job and I were to do something on the side, because I always want to give everything I do like more than 100%, then I feel like I'm not giving something 100% or whatever it is. And so I just like the ability to focus, and that's probably my personality too. But I think you need a little bit of runway before you just take that leap, because maybe like, you have an idea, but you don't know if it's going to work yet. Well, maybe don't take the leap until it's a bit more validated than
For
that or
sure.
something.
And whatever your journey is, because there are some people like, look at yourself, you quit your job, started an import business that you didn't know the industry, and it was very successful, but that was your journey. That was your path. That was kind of meant for you. So I think you got to also kind of see where you're at and kind of go, because as you're telling me this, like I'm already like, oh, this and this, because it's resonating with me. And I'm sure resonating with so many people who would listen to this, because I think we are in such different times of with COVID and people maybe pivoting and figuring out what works for me, what doesn't work for me, how else can I gain extra income during this time? What else can I do? So these are very important conversations to have, because I don't think it's, where before maybe people were doing side hustles because it was like a thing. It's like, no, people are looking for other ways to make more money.
That is so true. I've seen so many people launch businesses during this time. In fact, I have a podcast as well, and I interview product business owners. And so many people recently have just started a business during COVID because either they just have more time, they can think about it, or they need an extra income source, whatever it is. So it's interesting that this pandemic is kind of spurring this desire to start something. And I think there's going to be a lot of innovation during this time.
So tell me about your product. It's the Productpreneur podcast. Tell me about it. When did you start it? How many episodes? Of course, I'll put a link to it. Tell me a little bit about there, and then we'll go into steps to launching a product, marketing, growing a product business, kind of like what you tailor to that. But why don't you talk about your podcast briefly?
I started the podcast because I felt that I really wanted to inspire women to launch a product business and grow it as well. And there are different podcasts like it, but I didn't feel like there was anything tailored to women. Like there are, I don't know if you know How I Built This. This is one podcast that is great for starting a business, but there was nothing like specific to women and product. So it's called the Productpreneur Podcast, and it features women entrepreneurs who either are in the phase of building a product business or like launching something, or they have a product business and they're growing it. And it talks about their story and some of the how they did it and some of the mindset and all that.
Inspiration behind it.
And the inspiration. Yeah. And then I also interview guest experts who serve product-based businesses who can help give advice on things like social media or website or just marketing or whatever it is. So I have a bit of both. And then I also speak on my own episodes where I talk about different things like developing a product or marketing a product and things like that. So it's been an amazing journey. I really love it, as you love podcasting, I'm sure, because otherwise you wouldn't do it.
I think people think it's 1, 2, 3, and it's not.
No, it's not. Somebody told me, oh, it's going to take about 5 hours a week of your time. And I didn't believe them. But yeah, it does take time and effort and energy.
Especially,
and I wouldn't do it if I didn't love it.
If you want to do it the proper way and do it and make sure that the message you are conveying is the message that's getting out there.
Exactly. So it's been about a year as well. I mean, I'm probably in about my year anniversary, and I wasn't consistent in the beginning because I also had a very large consulting role. But then when the pandemic hit, I really got consistent, and I'm on weekly episodes now. And ever since then, it's just been growing. And I have so many listeners just joining, going, oh, that's so amazing. I wish I had this when I started my product business, or I'm so glad it's there that I can listen to this. And they feel sort of inspired by the episodes from all the different types of products that are being created. And that's what I love about it, because it's just helping people who maybe they don't have the resources to join a program or whatever, but they can listen to this and get inspired and then have sort of the steps as well.
100%. There was one of them that I had listened of yours, and forgive me for the name, but I think she was English, and she was talking about how she started one of those businesses that were not like an Herbalife. I don't know if you're familiar with Herbalife, but not like a business that's already a business that's kind of already. Say that again?
Yeah, a network marketing business.
Basically. And oh gosh, and I forget the business that hers was tailored to that of a network marketing business like that. But it was a great episode. And I wish I had the name. I'll think about it probably as we're going through. But it was a really, really cool episode. And she got to speak on how, starting her business. And it was just very informative. And I think you're right. I think in this day and age, people are looking, especially as a mom, and maybe not all of your listeners are moms, or same with me, or you would think mamas know best. But either way, I think when you're a mom or when you're a woman, we have so many roles, right? And so many things that we have to take care of. And sometimes we just want to kind of like, we need that push, we need help, we need to know where we can go for reference, where we can go for good sources of saying, help me get here. Because I think a lot of time, well, look, like you said, there wasn't many podcasts that tailored to women. Most of them are men, because men are the ones that tend to start businesses. They're the ones that tend to kind of take that. So the fact that you have that, I think that's great. So, just keep up with what you're doing with that podcast. So that's awesome.
Yeah, I think a lot of women I think that's changing, like the fact that, mostly men were starting businesses. Definitely, I see so many women starting businesses. It's amazing, but still the statistic, I can't remember the exact statistic, but maybe it's like only 2% of women reach the $1 million mark in their businesses. And it's much higher for men. So we've got to change that. And that's one of my motivations for doing the podcast, so that women will be successful. And I definitely believe for women, it's so important to have something that you're also passionate about beyond just motherhood. I don't say just motherhood, because that's huge, because motherhood is such a huge job. And starting a business is not for everyone. So don't get me wrong. I don't think that every woman should start a business or anything. But for me, it was just like, I needed something beyond being a mom, because I just felt like I needed more confidence, and I felt like I needed some other purpose beyond motherhood. So that's the way business does help women in that regard, is to have something like that outside of their role as a mom, know that it's for them and only them. And it's, it's not selfish. It's totally fine to start something of your own.
Yeah, well, that's a good key word, selfish, because I think as women in general, and again, if you even take out the moms and it's just women, we just have this thing where, we're not really selfish. We're constantly giving of ourselves. So putting things like this, like my podcast, your podcast, out there to the world, I think helps, because I think it lets other women know, okay, I'm not alone in this, in whatever regard that is. And if they could do it, I can do it as well.
For sure. Exactly. That's what it is. It's like, oh, wow, it didn't seem so hard. Maybe I can do it.
Yeah, even if you're a little nervous about it. So why don't we go into, and I'm sure there's a lot, so I don't, you kind of bring it down to however you need to explain it, but sure. Tell me about marketing and growing a product business, developing marketing strategies, steps to launching a product. What does that look like? Or how do you help women? They find you, you develop a plan, kind of talk about that.
Yeah. I have different options for women who want to work with me. One is through building a product business. Say they have an idea, or maybe they don't have an idea at all. They just know they want to build the product business. So I help them go from idea to launch. And I do that in a very structured way that I used to the way I used to work in the corporate world. And it's a very sort of systematic way where we go step by step from idea to launch. And what it does is that it reduces the overwhelm, because starting a product business can be very overwhelming. There's a lot of steps involved. There's so many different things. And how do you know what to do first? And that's the biggest thing I hear from people. They're like, I don't even know where to start. Like, where would I even begin with this? So it's very structured. And I do that in 2 different programs. One is sort of a starter course, where if people have an idea, but they're just not sure if they want to go with it, it's a great way to get your feet wet. We go from idea to a business plan and prototype, or the start of a prototype. And it's a group program. It's really great, because you meet other people. You're sort of feeding off of each other. So that's one way. The other is called the Product Launch Lab, which is a 6-month program for people who are a little bit more invested in their idea in terms of they really know they want to do this. So we go from idea to launch. And again, we go through all the different steps. There's also some done for you services that takes that kind of burden off of the entrepreneur. And then if women have a product business, I help them with accelerating their success. So I have a program called the Product Accelerator, where we do a deep dive into their business. It's a 6-month coaching program where I take them from, say, they're at a certain level in their business and we want to be able to build momentum and see predictable sales. So we really dive into their situation, and then we build a marketing, a strategic plan together, and then we take action and I hold them accountable. So those are like sort of 2 or 3 different ways that I help, but my mission is just to help women accelerate their success. And
that's awesome.
And yeah.
So what if it's someone who knows that they have a product business, right? They're like, no, I have this product. Let's say it's anything, right? It's any product under the sun. And they're like, yep, I know I have this. Then you would say the product launch lab would be, because they wouldn't need to do the 8-week program, because they kind of know, like, nope, I know this will work. I know it. I feel it in my gut. I feel it in my heart. Then you would say, let's start with the product launch lab.
Yeah, we would still go through the same content of the 8-week program. So they would definitely they need that foundation still, although it's just that they know they want to launch something. So it's just more of, hey, I'm going to invest the 6 months and we're going to really make it happen. Whereas you might be like, oh, I'm not sure. And let's just see how it goes and get to that next step. And a lot of people, I find, it's always the beginning stages that they're kind of stuck, where they don't know what to do first. So just getting them started is the great thing about the product pathway, because a lot of people have a hard time just getting even started.
Yeah, sure. And how then do you measure the success based off the program? Is it them starting the business? Is it after a number of sales? Do you still keep in contact with them as the business is growing? What does that look like?
Yeah, well, typically all the people that I've worked with, say in the product pathway, we're continuing to work together afterwards, because they still need help with getting their idea sort of further developed and actually launching it. But you can take it and, just work on your own if you want. So many, actually, I think like most of the people I still work with, and I help them with getting their product launched. And then, so once it's launched, then we can also work on growing their business
together with it from there.
Together.
What are some hesitations about building a product business, and how can people get over those hurdles?
Yeah, for sure. So hesitations would be, I don't know the steps. I have no idea where to start and all of that. And as I said, I help them with the steps and knowing what to do and really hand holding them through the process. Another would be, oh gosh, it's going to be so expensive. I don't even know like if I can afford this kind of thing. And I help them with different ways that they can start a product business so that they're not putting like a huge investment in inventory, for example, and risking their mortgage or whatever. Sure. So there are different models of having a product business where you don't have to invest so much, and we just get creative in terms of how we do that.
And on a smaller scale, as opposed to, like you said, a large, like, nope, I'm going to put all my eggs in one basket and we're going to run out this way.
Yeah. It could be a smaller scale. It could be the type of product that they pick. For example, there are businesses where you can create, like, build on demand. Like if you're a maker, right? You're making the product. You're not actually ordering thousands of units from overseas to sell, which is more of a risk because you're putting money in inventory. So there's definitely different options so that you don't have to invest in a huge way in the beginning. So we go through that as well to know, like, what is their appetite for investment. And I think the other thing would be time. People don't know if they have time to work on it. And so that's how the Product Launch Lab also really helps, because that 6-month program is helping them with some of the done for you services that they don't have to do. And we help them with.
Sure. And what do people mostly have trouble with when developing or launching a product type business?
A lot of people get stuck on their idea and they think, okay, this is the idea that's going to work. But they actually haven't tested the idea. They haven't gotten feedback. So I really stretch people to make sure that we come up with different ways of expressing the idea, or different ideas around solving the same problem or whatever it is, so that you're not just hung up on one thing. There might be a different way to do it. And it's really important before launching something, that you test it with the right target market and get some feedback before you're spending a ton of money on all of the launch and then find that there's no market for it and nobody's ordering anything. So that's definitely one thing that is super key. The other is just thinking that, oh, if I build it, they will come. Like if I launch my website, then everybody's going to buy, and like imagining that, but that doesn't happen. There's got to be a marketing strategy behind what you're doing. And it's very important to build that upfront demand before launching. So things like pre-selling your product and getting a wait list going, and also building your audience before launching. Those are very important things to do as well.
Sure. And I guess if you already have a product business, what are some ways to grow your awareness and sales? And I know you kind of touched base a little bit, but if someone already has that product business, what are ways that they can grow their sales and awareness?
Yes. Yeah. So I take my clients through something called, it's like a marketing funnel, and making sure that, or customer journey. It's like making sure that you've got a marketing plan in place and that covers every point of the customer journey. So the journey starts with somebody being aware of your product, just aware that you exist, and then taking them to the stage that they're going to start to consider your product amongst other products that they might have thought of to solve their problem. And then the next step is that they actually purchase. And then from there, they might purchase more of your products, or they just become loyal fans. And then from there, they're loyal. They will, refer you, write reviews for you. They'll buy your products again and again. So that is kind of the journey you want people to go through. And to have a marketing plan in place for each point, to know that you are converting people along that journey, is really important. So, for example, we look at ways to grow awareness, and it could be through paid media, your own channels, or maybe shared channels or earned channels like PR. And then from there, we take them through, like, how do they start considering your products? So it could be maybe you're creating amazing content that they want to read and they're starting to engage with you more, or you're engaging with them at different trade shows or whatever. And then, they become subscribers, and how do you nurture them through emails and then convert them on your website, and all the different levers that you do that. So there's a lot of different steps, but it starts with understanding where they're at and how their marketing funnel is working, and then improving whatever we can.
From there, it's something just registered, because I'm like, you've been in marketing. That's how your career started, correct? It's
Correct,
now 2020. How have you seen the changes of, I'm sure, direct mail marketing, email marketing, now social media? What has that been like for you, and how do you keep up with like the CE credits, the continuing education credits?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Like, what do you do? Because that has had to be an amazing, very interesting journey through marketing in itself.
Oh, yeah. Okay, definitely. Well, because when I started, it was all offline media, and it was like TV and print and radio. And those were the things that we spent money on. And so we call it traditional media. And now there's all this digital media. I think it started to happen along, like, when social media, that whole thing launched. And then, like, wow, it just grew from there. And so most people are spending most of their money in digital, whereas we used to spend all of our money in more traditional media like TV. Like that's kind of a dinosaur thing to do right now.
Even you with helping these women create their businesses, and obviously helping marketing plans and all of that. So you wouldn't recommend going through TV or the traditional route, right? You would say social media, the digital, or I guess maybe depending on what you're.
No, yeah, it really depends. And also, not that I wouldn't recommend it. It's just that now we have so much more to consider. Yeah. There's so many different avenues, and you could, for example, like out of home and billboards and all of that. It's still important. It's still a medium to use, but those are often very expensive. So it's not the place I would say to start. If you really want to build a brand and get some traction, and also be able to see the return on investment right away, because with traditional, you can't see that return on investment, whereas digital, you can see, okay, who's clicked, who's bought through that, and all that. Yeah. So I would definitely start with more digital avenues for entrepreneurs.
Yeah. Quick story. Okay. My previous employer was very antiquated and old school when it came to marketing and very traditional. And she still put up billboards. And they were so expensive. And we were trying to tell her it was a wedding and banquet venue. And we were trying to tell her that the digital age is where we needed to go, especially because she was a wedding. Well, that's where she got most of her revenue from. And, we had to go that route. And she just wouldn't. She's like, nope, those billboards have been with me over the highway. They were like $5,000 a pop. And we're like, no, you can save so much money and reach like thousands and thousands of more people.
Yeah. And your question about how do I keep up with all the changing digital versus traditional and all that, I've joined the Digital Marketer, which is an amazing resource for digital marketing. And they have amazing programs. They have a membership and conference that they do every year. So that is one way I keep up with all of the changing digital things. And I'm a constant learner, like always reading and looking at different resources, listening to marketing podcasts. Social Media Examiner is another one. It's amazing about resource for social media marketing. So there is a ton of stuff, and it's just about educating yourself and constantly being on top of it. And as a business owner, it's hard to keep on top of everything. So it is good to have somebody helping you with your marketing for sure.
It goes back to what you're saying, maybe investing. Sometimes you have to invest in yourself of getting that help. And I think in this day and age, it's not just the typical, like, okay, you need, if you're starting a business, maybe a CEO or an HR director, whatever that looks like, someone to help, a bookkeeper, a CPA. But in this day and age, just having someone really guide you through these charted territories of digital media and things that maybe not. Facebook paid ads. I worked for an email marketing company in the accounting department, so I'm familiar with the verbiage. But even I myself, of what that looks like and understanding what it means when people come to your website. So I think companies are having to find ways of investing in different avenues than your traditional CPAs and business type people to help you with your business.
For sure. Yeah, it's really important.
For sure. Okay, Nicole. So I like to get into my quick get to know, unless of course there's anything, because my get to know is a little bit more about you. You've talked about your business and now that, but I like to have these fun questions, but I don't want, if there's anything maybe on your mind that you felt like you wanted to say, is there anything you want to say about your business, anything related to that going before we move forward?
Yeah, what I would say is if you have an idea or something that you want to do, don't wait for the perfect time. Don't wait till it's perfect. Just start doing something, because some progress is better than no progress. And once you start, the things will start happening for you. So kind of have your vision and just get started. And I couldn't stress that enough, because everyone strives for perfection, but there's really no such thing as perfection.
100%. When I listened to my earlier podcast, I kind of cringed. I'm like, oh my gosh, but I wanted to start.
That's right.
Me too. Because if I would have never started back then, and I was fearful of maybe it not sounding right or whatever, I started with the best that I had and what I knew. You start with what you know. I would have never done this. So I think that's
for sure.
So I love this question, but many people are always like, I don't have this. So I'm going to ask you, do you have a favorite movie or a movie that you always watch when it's on?
Okay, so I don't really have a favorite, but I do love action movies like Mission Impossible, James Bond, those kinds of things, because I always find them really entertaining and always full of action.
So now that Go ahead.
Oh, I did love Dead Poet Society, but I don't know if I'd watch it again. It's very, slow and.
It is, but that's a very good movie. I'm a movie buff, which is why I love it, because I watch all kind of movies. I love a good cry. I love movies that make me laugh. Movies, I just love storytelling. But now that your children are older, because I have a 3-year-old, so Disney Plus is in my home, and kids. Were your kids ever into movies, or was it like always Disney? Like what did you guys have with your little ones?
Oh, yeah, they were always into movies. In fact, we just had movie night last night. And now that you said that with crying, I cry at everything. So my daughter and I, we watched Black Stallion. Oh my goodness. Oh, I just cried. She was just looking at me like, what are you doing? What's wrong with you? Yeah, we loved movies.
Yeah, that's awesome. What's a favorite book or one that you would like to recommend, or both?
Well, I am a little bit of a geek and I just love self-development books and marketing books. I know it's really geeky, but honestly, that's what I read for pleasure. So I love the book Story Brand by Donald Miller in terms of if you want to know what kind of messaging to have for your brand, it's an amazing book for that.
Okay.
And also a book called The Slight Edge by Jeff Olson, which is all about taking baby steps, little steps eventually help you get to have a huge edge. But a lot of people think you have to take this giant leap where you don't. So yeah, those are great.
Awesome. Any high or low mom moments of the week? Again, I know your children are older, but you are still a mom. So, I know you can maybe have a little bit more focus, but since they are, gosh, all three of them are in double digits. I feel like that's, because I have my OG friends that I call them my veteran friends that have children that are much older than my son. And I'm like, how did you get through this? What did you do? So any high or low mom moments of the week that you kind of want to put out there that, that you still have, especially because they're getting up there in age.
Well, high moments would be things like the fact that I can pick them up and I have the freedom and flexibility to do that. I just love that. My mom always did that for me, and I've always wanted to do that. So that's one of the reasons that I wanted to have a business, is to be able to have the flexibility to be able to pick them up from school and just see them smiling and ask them about how their day went and stuff. So that's a high. And I just love seeing my kids when they come up with ideas, creative ideas. I just keep thinking, oh, that's so entrepreneurial. I love it. So that is my high. And then my low, I guess, would be when I feel like I'm nagging and asking them to do their homework or practice piano. Oh, I hate nagging and I hate listening to my voice. But I don't know, sometimes we have to remind them. And so I don't know. I'm sure there's a better way, but haven't found it yet.
It is what it is. Are they involved? Are they interested in what you do? Like how is that? Because I know once they get into the teenage years, it's like nothing is, they're very, focused on one thing and that's what they're doing. But, are they aware? Do you talk to them about your business?
Oh, yeah, they're aware. And actually, my daughter recently said how she wants to launch a soap making business and sell soaps online. And mommy, you're going to help me with the website. and so, yes, we talked a lot about that. She hasn't done it yet, but she has this vision. And I believe she'll do it because when she has something in her head, she will do it.
And do you have all girls or boys? What do you
No. Yeah, right. My youngest is my daughter. So she's 10.
Okay.
Then 11-year-old and 14, they're boys.
They're boys. Okay.
And my middle one is probably the most entrepreneurial, I'd say, because he's all about making money, honestly. He's like, can I sell this? What job is going to make me the most money when I grow up? Like all that. So it's hilarious.
Nice. Okay, cool. So that's good that well, first of all, that they have the self-awareness is there, I think is so important. And that they know, maybe now they don't appreciate or to really appreciate, but to understand like what your accomplishments are and what you've been able to do with that. So that's awesome.
Yeah, it's very cute. I love it. And I love it when they make their lemonade stands and seeing them there and like how their strategies for making more money on each lemonade.
And I'm sure, and maybe, they're in the discussions with them, you learn something as well. I feel like kids have this, just like innate simplicity to life. And I think it's adults that overcomplicate everything.
Oh, yeah, totally. Totally. Yeah. Like I'm asking my daughter, so how are you going to differentiate your business? Like, what's going to be your point of difference? She's like, I don't know. I'm just going to make soap. I'm like, okay, whatever. But it's very innocent. It's so cute.
What has motherhood taught you? I always love this question.
Yeah. It's suddenly you go from everything being about you and it's not about you, only you anymore. And so I think that was the biggest shift for me, to realize that suddenly it's about this other human being and not about you at all. That's how I felt like when I transitioned to motherhood. But it taught me to understand the importance between balancing the focus on others and focus on myself, because I think self-care is so huge and so important. And as moms, sometimes we just lose some of that. And
sure. So what do you do for your own self-care, for your own mental health breaks, for your own peace of mind? What does that look like for you?
Yes, exercise is really important for me. Oh my gosh. If I don't exercise, I feel it. Like I feel it in how I'm reacting to things and how I am with my kids. So I like to run, I like to lift weights, and I also love yoga. And
Mhm.
I find sort of all three of those balancing that is amazing. I also used candles when I, when I do my yoga and like have a nice quiet room. I
Right.
like to sometimes meditate or just pray in the morning or evening. And healthy eating. It's not always I'm not always great with that, but I do find that when I eat healthy, I feel better.
I agree. No, yeah, those are such wonderful moments. You had mentioned before when you wanted to give the extra kind of tips, and you had said, or no, when you were saying your favorite book of sometimes people think they have to be these great big steps, where sometimes it's the small steps. And one of
Hmm.
the moms that I interviewed, actually, it might be the Mom Rage's Real episode. I think she had said, like, we have this ideology that self care has to be this grand gesture of what we do to take care of ourselves, whether it's society putting on social media, we have to do this, whatever it is. And it's like, no, it could be, like you said, putting on a nice smelling candle that makes you feel good. And you just
Right.
want to, whatever it is. And I'm like, yeah, it's what makes you happy. How am I to say that if that brings you joy, that there's something wrong with that, even if it's on a small scale? Uh,
Yeah, for sure.
and
Yeah,
I think we have
exactly.
to appreciate those small moments that we have. I know for me, it's stretching. Like I need to stretch. If I don't stretch, I'll get
Mm,
back to the working out. I'm just not
right.
there yet with the time, but I
Yeah.
need to stretch. I meditate during my stretch. I breathe. And if I don't within the next few days, like I just feel it, my body's tight.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah,
reacting more, and you have to listen to your body and
for
whatever.
sure. So
And
important.
what advice or wisdom do you hope your children will always follow?
Yeah, I've always followed this sort of mantra of whatever you can dream, you can do, and God wouldn't put it on your heart unless you could actually do it. So I really believe in you can do anything you set your mind to, and it could take some failure along the way, but you can do it. So I do hope my children follow that advice.
Awesome. And then lastly, I know you kind of did some final or, some extra tips before, but any final thoughts to the podcast world?
Yeah, I think it's just more along the same of just take that first step. Just if you're a podcaster, or if you're not a podcaster, you want to become one, just take a first step and start imperfectly to start, and it'll go from there. Whatever you want to do, just take imperfect action to get towards your goals.
To get to where you go. Nicole, it's been a pleasure having you on. I will put all of your information on my podcast description for people to get in touch with you. I know I will be getting in touch with you. As we were talking, I had my own ideas of things that I've kind of had kind of in the back burner and thinking about 2021 and now how I kind of want to solidify. And of course, having
Great.
the help, I think for me, it was just like, do I really want to pay to get the help? Like, what do I really need? And,
Mhm.
I think, God did put it on my heart to do certain things. I just have to figure out what that pathway is to get there. And in meeting
Right.
women like yourself and other women I've come in contact with, I'm like, gosh, this is it. I feel like it's meant to be when we cross paths with people. So
Totally.
I will be contacting you and we'll speak again.
Oh,
But thank you so much for coming on and sharing your tips for what you're doing to help women entrepreneurs start their product businesses and for all of the good information you're putting out there on your podcast.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. And I just want to offer up to your audience, if they would like to book a discovery call or strategy call, you can do that through, we'll put the link in the show notes, but I'm offering a 1 hour free call for anyone who has an idea, or maybe you don't have an idea, or maybe you have a business and you just want to chat about it. That is definitely open to your listeners. And also, I'll be launching my course in January. So we'll also put the link to that in the show notes if you're interested in launching a product.
All right, awesome. Thank you so much for that. Have a
Thank
great
you.
rest of your Sunday and we'll talk soon.
Thank you so much once again. I'm so grateful. Thank you for listening to the Productpreneur podcast. If you loved this episode, we'd be so grateful if you could take a sec to subscribe, share it, and review it on Apple Podcasts. Your review will help more women build their own dream product business. By the way, if you have any feedback, comments, or questions, email me at info@nicoledelarzac.com. Until next time, keep dreaming up those product ideas.